Okay, welcome back to another video in the training series. We are, at this point, we've covered quite a bit of the portal. Obviously, we've gone through every persona in the portal, and we've covered both the major sections of Dynamics so far. But one area that we really haven't covered is the configuration area, where we actually set up a lot of our participation types, where we create the forms that we're applying to our contacts. So we're gonna take a deep dive into how to set up a lot of these things. This training might not be relevant to every staff member. The access and the ability to modify the configurations area is locked down pretty heavily to those of you at a program that are considered your administrator. So while this is great information to know, just go into this training knowing that you might not be able to do everything that I'm doing and certainly not see everything that I'm seeing. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into it. So our first big step is in order to get to the configuration area, we need to access our dropdown on our area selection on our sitemap and go to configuration. I'm going to kind of walk through the side sitemap as we get to it. Some of it's really not going to make much sense until I actually go into the specific area. So the first place we're going to start is programs. I'm not going to cover home, recent, and pinned. Those are the same across both contacts and events, but this will bring us home to whatever we set in our personalization settings. In programs, we can select our individual program. Right now, obviously, I am seeing all of our programs in the system because of my permissions. But for you, at an individual program, you should be only seeing your program. So when we click into a single program or our program, we'll be met with a screen with information that is in particular to our program. We'll see different functionality in these different tabs elsewhere in the configuration area. But for right now, this is exactly where we're met with when in our program. So we'll see our program name, your state program, whatever that's called, in this case, Illinois. This information you really should never have to change on a frequent basis, but if you did not offer Adobe Sign, we do have this indicator here. The site URL, so whatever your website may be. Looks like Illinois has the general portal link, but you can put your own state programs website. Portal disabled zones, this will control like how you can register. So if you're only doing the volunteer module, we would have the athlete and coach and all of that disabled. Again, really should never have to worry about this, and this should be primarily done with the assistance of the COE team. Where we see our default roles for both athlete and volunteer, this is what gets set when you create an athlete profile or create a volunteer profile. We'll do a little bit of that process automatically for you and just automatically give you the role of athlete and event volunteer in Illinois' case with a default qualification form to complete. So if you remember from our volunteer portal training, we saw that when we created our account, automatically we were shown the Class B release of liability or the general liability waiver to complete before moving on in the process. So these forms we can change around or change the default role as we need to. This would be most likely the scenario for the volunteer role. The athletes, primarily they're going to be coming in with the athlete role. Our show account questions. These are additional questions that we can add to the account registration process. So asking the questions for school, company, and organization. Optional questions to add on. So if your program did want those to be asked when creating a profile, you can indicate that here as well. Contact information is pretty self-explanatory, but you can add your phone number, primary email, This information will be displayed in the signature line of any email that gets sent from the system. So whatever email you need or address for your office, this is where you can indicate that as well. We'll look at regions elsewhere. Some of this data doesn't display on how Illinois got their setup, but you can see all of your region structure from here as well, but I'll cover that in our next section. Record history just says when it was created and who last modified it, etc. Program notifications, don't worry about this. This really doesn't actually do any functionality currently. This is for new functionality that will come later on. Email notifications, you can't change any of this information, but here's where you can see all of the emails that get sent out. So a welcome email, anytime a form is changed, event sign up, etc. This is all the emails that get sent out from the system. Tags, these are for related tags. We covered this in our contacts section. We can create a new tag here if we wanted to. Call it, board member. But these are created as far as what we can add to a contact from the configuration area. In the Contact Us page, you have the ability to create whatever type of contact page you want. So if we think about it from the portal perspective, we see on the Contact Special Olympics page, just baseline information for email and phone number to contact your program. But you may want to put additional information. You want, specific contact information for specific things. Volunteers reach out to so-and-so at mdugan@soil.org, and it'll automatically populate to an email for us. And reach us at www.soil.org. We can add a hyperlink here. We can change the font if we wanted to, bold it, underline it, highlight it, change it red, whatever we want. We have the ability to customize our Contact Us page. So it gives you flexibility up to, I think, 1 million characters of text here. So you can add whatever you like. For the custom region page, so if you remember from our very first training when we went through creating an account for the first time, we saw the ability to select our regions. And there's a lot of questions about, well, what region am I in? Very similar to the Contact Us page, we have the flexibility of adding custom region page information where we can set additional information for understanding our region structures. So we can include a website or link out to our website for additional clarification on regions and how to find your region, etc. But this is an optional field to set. For portal notifications, these are notifications that we can add to each zone. So if we go and create one, we can say that we want this notification to start today and go through the end of the month. And we're going to say Happy Halloween. And we're going to say that it should be on the athlete portal, the coach portal, the parent or guardian portal, and also the volunteer portal. So anytime one of these people log into the portal, they'll see this message for this amount of time. And on the portal, this will display in a red box with whatever that message is. You can really be very flexible in what information you select here. You can add a hyperlink if you'd like to. But these are, additional messages for reminders to our constituents. And then once the 31st is done, that portal message will be removed. That's kind of the long and short of the program area, but this is really just information specific to kind of the contact or information that's displayed on the portal. Moving on to our regions, this is where we find our region structure. So I'm going to filter this out to look at just Illinois. But here we've got our list of all of our regions in Illinois. If we click into one, we can see the hierarchy of all of the relationships between this region. So region B and north of Chicago, and all of the children regions or regions that are associated with it. So our areas and then delegations that make up our region hierarchy. Same thing. We can change this around. We can change the name if we need to. Add a manager. These are optional fields. You may never actually use them. But this is where we can find and manage our active regions within our program. Supported sports. These are just a listing of our sports that we have at our program. Same thing. We can look at them, open one up, change it to whatever sport name we need to. This is no longer unified soccer. It's just regular soccer. Change the category, etc. But this is where all of those sports that we were looking at when we were creating an engagement, this is where they're getting drawn from. So our supported sports impact things on our contacts for the sports that they participate in, and then our events for the sport that the event is. This information, you'll never be able to edit it, so don't worry about countries, states, qualifying conditions, and assistive devices. Those are system set, and you will not have the ability to change any of that. Our t-shirts, on the other hand, we can add these, remove these. Say Illinois now goes up to 4XL. We can add a new one. And this is in Illinois. And add a new t-shirt size. Skipped one step, but we need to put 70 for the sort order. This just determines like where on the list it falls. So we want small to be displayed first, then medium, all the way up through 4XL. And those are done by multiples of 10. So if small is your first option, that is 10, medium's 20, large is 30, etc. You can also change these names. If you didn't want just the letter, we could indicate small, etc. We already went through portal notifications, but this is where we can access them as well outside of our programs tab. For our engagement opportunity subtypes, this is where we can set those subtypes that are associated with our event. So say we need to create a new one, and this is a state level competition, and it's going to be associated with our competition engagement types, and then of course set our program to whatever our program is. Okay, pause here and take a break and give you guys a second to take a drink of water as well. Stay hydrated, folks. Okay, so our next big section is arguably the most important section of building out our participation types for our participants. So if you remember from the portal and some of our backend training, we come in as an event volunteer, or we apply to be a coach, or we're going through all of the athlete qualifications. Each of those are need to exist somewhere in Dynamics and need to be built somewhere. So we do the modification and addition of new participation types, all from configurations. And these are stored in 3 different places. So we've got our participation types, which are our roles. So coach, unified partner, committee member, LATR, officer, whatever that hierarchy or that large role may be, this is where we set it. Within that, we've got our qualifications, which are our grouping of individual tasks. And we see those in our qualification tasks, or qualification types. So we've got our Class A qualifications, which may make up background checks, Class A forms, whatever that may be. that is a grouping of what we call form setup types. And we see those form setup types here under form setup types. So what these are the individual items that somebody needs to create or do in order for participation. So our background check, a general orientation training, SOAD responsibilities, whatever the form may be, this is where they exist. And each of these kind of levels and tiers are important and all relate within each other. To go about the process of creating a new role, there's kind of two ways of thinking about it. We can go from the top-down approach, where we start by creating that new role, and then go into our qualifications and start creating a group of potential forms. Or alternatively, start at the form level and start adding individual forms that need to be added. Kind of the two ways, there's plus and minuses or benefits and drawbacks to either one. Starting at our lowest level from the form setup type allows us to kind of build our foundation, and we're only adding on to it. While at the participation type, we may have some information, but not all of the information, and we'll have to go to each of those layers before having a complete picture. And that first way, kind of, from the top-down way, requires us to kind of do some back and forth of, okay, I created the participation type. Now I got to go to the qualifications, and now from the qualifications, I got to go to the forms, and then all the way back up. So my recommendation is actually starting at the lowest level. So creating our form. For most of us, we're not going to have to do this unless it's a brand new form. If we already have a Class B release of liability or general liability form that exists, we can skip this initial step. But if we're creating something like a new training or adding a new form, we'll start by adding a new form. I'm going to use a very basic name for this, just Max example form, just so I remember to delete it later so Illinois does not yell at me. So we call it our name, our security level. The two ways of thinking about this is PII is everything except for the med form, and PHI is the health form. So PHI stands for personal health information, and PII stands for something personal something information. I'm a great trainer, as you can tell, but most of our forms are going to be PII. Days to expiration, this is an optional field. If our form expires in a year, we'll put it in day format, so 365. If it expires in 3 years, we'll turn it into 1095, etc., etc. Our program will always default to whatever program that we are. And then for our portal form setup type, where I've got a few options here. So we can do an Adobe signed document, a manual signed document, a checkbox form. If it's the health form, we can do that here. We can ignore these two. And then our last two are training forms and background check forms. Depending on which one you select, will determine kind of what type of next information you get. But I'm going to use the example of a training because this is where some additional functionality gets created. For our rich text indicator, this is where we can open up a text box, and similar to our portal notifications or the region selection rich text, we can add additional information here to explain the form. So if we wanted to give additional information as to what is Max example form, this is where we could indicate and write that information. So Max form is cool. In here we can add hyperlinks, bold it, underline it, italicize it, whatever we need. Portal download URL. So this step is the only step that you'll need a COE staff member to help you with. So COE team will be able to provide you with a PDF link if you have a PDF that's associated with it. The unique PDF link is stored differently in Dynamics. So in the event that you have a PDF that will accompany a form, send it to Mac or another member of the COE team, and they'll be able to help generate that for you. We'll put a hold here just to show an example, but it'll be a unique link that you can click on and you can see the actual PDF. Auto approved, we can indicate yes if it'll be automatically approved, no. If it's conditional, you won't ever use this one. This has to do with like background checks that will come set up for you already. And then the option of e-sign only, so if it was an Adobe document, that would be automatically approved if they complete it through e-sign. We'll say that this is yes, automatically approved. For disable renew, this will remove the ability on the portal side of things for a constituent to renew the document. Good example of this is, say we have a document that, like the Class B form, for example, there's no need for a volunteer to ever renew that document. So we're not even going to give them the option of that by disabling the renew. Show quiz. This is specific to things like concussion awareness that you're using the built-in functionality. Later on, we'll show, actually here pretty soon, we'll show the ability to create a custom quiz. But if we're doing a custom quiz, we will indicate no here. We'll save, and this will add our initial form. So we created this as a training, and this will give us additional access to the training pages and contact tab here. Clicking on this is where we can start building out additional pages to our training. A good example of this is the general orientation or concussion awareness, where there's multiple buttons that we click through and quizzes that we do associated on the portal. So under our training pages, you think about it of a multiple page document. We're having the volunteer or constituent go through each page, click next, and continue. So to create a new one, we'll go create new. We'll name it. So this is going to be page 1. And we're going to add a page number. As the name suggests, this is going to be page 1. Our owner will default to us. You don't necessarily need to change that, so don't worry about that. And then for our type, we have two options of content or quiz. So if it is not a quiz, it's like a PDF form, you put content, click save, and then under our form links is where we're able to add PDFs, hyperlinks, videos if we have them, all within that first page. So we'll call this video link number 1. This is going to be displayed first on that page, so we'll indicate 1. And this is going to be a video. And we're going to do just, I don't know. You know what we'll do? We'll do the playlist to this series. So you can put the YouTube link in there. It might need to be an embed link, and we can show how to pull an embed link from YouTube in a later training, but put in the link there. Form setup type, you don't need to put anything here, and then same thing for owner. Save and close once you've added it. Great, we have added this YouTube video to the page 1. So say we want to add a custom quiz to this training. So we're going to have somebody take a quiz after watching all of my training videos. Same process, we add a new training page. We'll create a quiz, and this is going to be our second page. So this is going to be watched, or the quiz will be completed after they watch that video. So this will be page number 2. And then for the type, we'll indicate quiz. click save, and now we'll be able to start adding quiz questions. For the quiz questions, you just create the name of the quiz question that you want. What is Mac's spirit animal? This is going to be our first question. Click save, and now our quiz options will populate. So here's we'll be able to do, option 1, option 2, option 3, and add all of those. So quiz optionnaire. We're going to call this platypus. For both the name and the label, these can be the same. The name is really like an internal tracking purpose, and the label is what will display on the portal. My recommendation is to keep it the same. That way, both from your side of things as a staff member and then from the portal side of things, there's no ambiguity of what the quiz option is. For the order, this is where we indicate, is this option A, is this option B, option C, but we do that through an integer. So 1 through whatever, however many options there are. And then for the correct answer, we indicate yes or no. If it's no, leave it unchecked. If it is yes, then click the checkbox and then save and close. So you will continue doing that for as many questions that you have and however many quiz options there are. There's no minimum or maximum number of questions that you can add, so add as many. I'm just going to go through one just to show what it is. So once you've added all of these, you can see we've got page 1, which is our YouTube video, page 2, which is our quiz, and now we're done. So now we've added a form setup type, and now we can move on to that next level, which is the qualification type. So we're going to be adding this form to a group of tasks that are associated with it. So same thing, to add a new one, click Add New, select our program, add a title. So this is going to be Mac's Qualification. For a qualification class, we'll indicate whether this is for athletes or for volunteers. Those are the only two options that we have. It will depend on what person type can have it. So an athlete should have the athletes, etc., etc. Then volunteer class is class A or B. We'll say this is class B. And then we can indicate an age requirement for whatever that may be. Description, you can add one if you'd like. It doesn't have any, it doesn't show up on the portal side of things. So this is really just an internal description if you need one. So you can use that there. Click Save. And now our qualification process task section will populate, and we're being able to add those form types. So that form setup type that we just created for the quiz, we can add that here. Same thing, volunteer or classification class, qualification class, athlete or volunteer. Call it whatever we want. The Mac's form we just created. Search for the form by either using the magnifying glass or typing it in. Find it and select it. Here we can say minimum and maximum age requirement. So say you need to be at least 18 years old to complete this, and you don't have to fill it out after you turn 18. You can indicate that here. A big example of this and probably use case would be the minimum age requirement. So you need to be 18 in order to complete this form, etc. For conditionally required and the description, you can leave those as is. The conditionally required really only pertains to the background check, so you don't have to worry about that. And then again, the description is just an internally tracking of the description. Save and close. And we can add as many as we want to this. So I'm going to say I'm going to add class A release to this. Search for it, and I'm going to find, you won't have this issue. You don't have access to every other program. Sure, we'll just add that. Again, save and close, and continue doing that. So this qualification types is a grouping of all of those form setup types. So this can be as many as we need it to be. Once we're done with that, we can save and close. And now we're ready to build out the actual participation type. So we've built our bottom level, and now our middle level layer, and now we can build out our final layer of the participation type. So we're going to go into our participation types, create a new one, call it whatever we want, max example role. For the generalized category, it can be competition delivery, health, or local programming. For program, we select whatever our program is. For the role type, athlete or volunteer. So if this is a volunteer role, obviously do volunteer, so on and so forth. Description. So this description will be visible on the portal. So whatever you indicate here will also display on the portal under the Do More with Special Olympics area of the volunteer section. So be sure to set this as whatever description you want it to be that's needed to be visible. So this is an example. And then for category, this will indicate the category under the Do More with Special Olympics section of the portal, either general event, coach, athlete leadership, team support, or health and fitness. So this is really just the categorization of the role itself. So this was team support, indicate that. For the Manage My Athletes configuration, this will indicate whether or not like this role shows up on the athlete grid, coach grid, and unified partner grid for the Manage My Participants area on the portal. So think about it from the coach zone. You know, we can see athletes, we can see unified partners, and we can see coaches. We can attribute this role, so my max example role, and have that be displayed under athletes or under coaches or under unified partners. These are default to no, but example here is if you're setting up another like chaperone role or team support role, and this should also be shown to coaches, we can indicate that as well. Awesome. So once we save, we'll have the ability to start adding those qualifications that we just set. So I can go in to add new participation qualification, search the qualification that I just made, save and close, or if I had multiple different groups of qualifications, I could add that here as well. Great, we've added this. We can go back to the qualification from here and see those form setup types that are associated with it. And you can see kind of at every level, at the highest level, we can go from the highest level down to the middle layer, and then from there down to even the form level type level. So we're able to kind of navigate between each of these layers from the participation types level. So let's save this. The age requirement will default to whatever the qualification age requirement is. We do have the ability to override this. So we can say, you know what, the age requirement is actually going to be 8, even though one of the requirements for the forms is 18. So you can override that if you need to. Awesome. So at this point, this role or this participation type is in draft status. It can't be added to a contact. It's not visible on the portal. It just exists in Dynamics. To publish that role, very similar to publishing an event, we click our little drop-down caret here and decide whether to publish it to the portal or privately publish it. Two differences is that a publish to the web or publish to the portal, that will display on the Do More with Special Olympics section of the volunteer portal, whereas privately published will not display on the portal. And you will, from a staff perspective, have to add that manually to a contact record. I'm going to leave this in draft. That way I don't mess up Illinois' portal. But that's kind of long and short of creating a brand new participation type. So again, my recommendation is we start at the lowest level for form setup types, create a new one if we need to, move to the qualification types level, create that or modify it, an existing one, and then finally create our participation types. Now, with that said, there's going to become a point in your program where you've got all of your forms in there and you're just creating new participation types and just adding forms and existing qualifications to it. You don't have to go through the first two steps every single time. If they already exist, then great. Just add that to a new participation type that you're creating. And you're really just updating and creating new information at that level. Great. A couple things I didn't really call out, but we see this in other areas, is our training pages. This is just a summary of all of the pages that we have. Same thing with quiz questions and quiz options. We build those in the form setup types, but we also see them here on these sections. Under our reports tab, this is where any custom report we see built. We'll cover this in our next training for reports and dashboards, but call out here is that this is one area that we can get to it. For duplicate contacts, this report will generate a list view of any potential duplicate that is in Dynamics. So we understand that holistically, duplicates are bound to happen. There are a variety of ways of a new record being created in Dynamics and on the portal, and there needs to be some level and some way to manage those duplicates. So as this duplicate contact report gets generated, we see a full listing of potential duplicates in the system. So if I search by specific name, it's going to pull a report for all of the potential MacDougans that are in, there we go, that are in the in Dynamics. Pardon me, I can't think clearly today, I guess. So there are all of these examples of potential duplicates for MacDougan with the emails that are potentially similar, names that are potentially similar, and person type. Now, if we click into one of these, we can see this MacDougan and the conflicts that he may have with other records in there. We're working on some additional enhancements with this duplicate contacts view, and we'll cover how to actually manage them in a different training with managing duplicate records. So while this kind of functionality I'm glossing over very quickly, we'll cover more in depth in a later training. And our last tab here is report summary. So there's definitely a need for having the ability to export data from Dynamics and then import it into another system. I think a good example of this is needing the ability to, where did I do this? Export external system IDs and then re-import that information into into GMS. We'll cover the report summary specifically in actually a completely separate training from reporting and dashboards. But here you'll have the ability of importing and exporting GMS data based off of a specific template or requirement that we need. With that, that is kind of the long and short of our configuration area. This area overall, I would suggest reaching out to the COE team for specific questions before you start doing things. Within the configuration area, there are definitely ways of you directly impacting the experience of a portal user. So be sure to ask or get clarification before making any changes. But I say that as a warning, but don't worry. Everything that we do here, we can certainly change or remove from the portal if we need to. But with that, I will leave you with 40 minutes into this training. Thank you so much for your time and effort learning about the COE, and we will see you on our next training for, I think we're going to do reports and dashboards, which is super fun. One of my favorite topics to talk about, so I hope to see you on that one. Have a good one. Take care.